It might be a little bit late in the day to start a bike project, but my goal is to turn this Peugeot into a single speed, a rudimentary single speed anyway, for free. So let's get started by taking off a bunch of the junk. The bolt on this front derailleur is a little hard to get to, but I guess I got to it. The front derailleur is stuck on the chain, so I gotta take off this little bolt right here, and then we can just yank the derailleur out. I don't know what this bracket does, but it's got to go. And with that bolt loose, the clamp should come right off. The rear derailleur is held in place with an axle nut that I'm loosening with a wrench, and now I can just take it the rest of the way off with my fingers. And I pull the derailleur cable out, and the derailleur is loose, but it's stuck on the chain just like the front one was. And I don't have a chain tool, so I might have to get a little gnarly with this. I don't have a chain tool with me today, so I'm just gonna try and cut this chain with some wire cutters. I couldn't do that while I was holding the camera, so I've just posed the wire cutters at a victorious spot with the broken chain, which now can come out of the derailleur. The next thing I'm going to remove is this wire that used to go from a generator, which doesn't exist anymore, all the way along the top tube to the front light. And I'm going to have to do that off camera because it takes two hands and I don't have a tripod today, sorry. And luckily for me, the light is not as carefully affixed as it should be, so I can just toss that out. I don't really see a need for a rear brake on a single speed bike like this. Plus, this brake is rubbing against the rear rim, which is coated in rust, so it's gotta go. Now I'll just cut the cable and we can get the brake right out of there. And now that the brake is removed, I can use a 4mm Allen wrench and get rid of this brake lever. And this thing's kind of a pain, so I'm gonna have to pry it off with a screwdriver off camera because I need two hands. Now, since the rear brake lever was so hard to take off, I'm gonna take off the front brake lever with magic. Now I'm gonna get rid of all the remaining cables from the front brake and the housings from the derailleur cables. And now I'll use a 12mm gear wrench to debumify the bum bars. Now let's restore these bars to their former drop bar glory. Now a single speed wouldn't be a single speed with drop bars, so I'm gonna cut them. This thing is supposed to work like the Rat song where you go round and round, but I don't have enough clearance, so I'm just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And now the handlebar comes off with only like a little bit of a sharp, gnarly edge on the bottom to slice your hand open. Be careful. And you may not have noticed, but I saved this bar tape, so now I can wrap it around, and in a second, I'll put the bar plug in. And now with the bar end in place, it's starting to look like a normal actual bike again. I did up the other side, and now seriously, we're like one deep V wheel away from a spot on Fixed Gear Gallery. But this seat is too tall and too crooked, and it's driving me nuts, so let's fix that. And yeah, I know, good luck getting my Allen wrench in that bolt. I can't believe I actually got that loose. And now the seat is not cocked, and it's down a little bit lower, so let me tighten the bolt. So at this point, what we have is a pretty cool looking Peugeot with these sort of quasi bullhorn bars and no gears and no clutter. And then on the ground, we have this pile of parts and tools and things that we used to strip the bike down. And phase 2 is next. So phase 2 of the project is the part where I changed locations because the sun was going down, and I went home and got some other tools, and I'll show you what I'm gonna do with those right now. What I did was I went home and I got some channel lock pliers and a chain whip. Use the channel locks to hold the big sprocket and the chain whip to take off the small sprocket, and if you're lucky, your multi-speed freewheel will turn into a one-speed freewheel. Let me kind of show you how it's done. The loosening part involves a lot of brute force, so I did that off camera. But now this small sprocket is loose, so that can come off. We're not going to use that because it's too small. This sprocket is the one we're going to use. That can come off too. And now I can just get rid of all these other sprockets, and there's some spacers in there. And this looks really easy. I already did it and loosened everything up at home, so it would be easy for the video. It's going to take you a little more effort. The pie plate is stuck behind the main body of the freewheel, so we're going to leave that in place. And now all I do is just thread on this medium-sized sprocket onto the freewheel body, and it will tighten up as we pedal the bike, so we don't have to worry about really tightening it. And now you have a 1-speed freewheel where you used to have 5. If you want to know where to get bicycle chain for free, find someone who's throwing away a garage door opener. Sometimes it's the right size, and this time we got lucky. I'm using the bike to figure out how long the chain needs to be, and a chain tool to cut to length, and this takes 2 hands, and I still don't have a tripod, so I'll see you in a second. So now the bike has a chain, and that's a thing of beauty. One thing that isn't a thing of beauty is that this front sprocket still has 2 sprockets on it, and I guess I could probably do something about that, but I won't, because that's more work than I'm willing to do on this project. But I will take off this sort of little bash guard trim ring thing. And now that it's all the way off, I probably shouldn't have taken it off. And now I've put just enough tension on the chain, and I'm going to tighten the axle nuts. Perfect. So now that the drivetrain is all taken care of, I need to put a brake on this bike. And it already has one, so all I need is a lever and a cable. And I found this Diacomp Tech 77 lever and cable and a brake that's similar to the Nippon on an abandoned baby carriage in the garbage. Look out for those things. The only drawback with this lever is it's a locking lever and it has this locking button right here, so I'm gonna have to pop that out. And that's really easy with a pair of wire cutters, but it's a 2-hand job. I've got no tripod, so I'm gonna do it off camera, sorry. And now your button comes right out and you have a perfectly usable Tech 77 lever. I've run into a minor problem, which is that the brake lever doesn't really fit on the handlebars that well, but I solved that problem by switching to a different set of handlebars, which I rewrapped using the original tape with limited success. Next, I measured out the amount of brake cable that I needed and cut it to length. I like to lubricate my brake cables with a little bit of oil, and I didn't have any, so I wiped some off of my car's dipstick onto my fingers, and now I'm going to just smear it onto the cable. And note to self, my car needs an oil change. And after checking the tension on the cable, I can tighten the cable bolt with my little tri-wrench. And now, check it out. I have a brake that works somewhat. So now, like an hour later, we have a single-speed bike that looks kind of cool, and we'll see in a minute whether or not it's rideable. Well, here I am in the parking lot of the Newburgh Free Library, riding my Peugeot single-speed bike. It's not perfect. In fact, it's making some weird noises. I don't know why, but I think it's a proof of concept, which is that I can take a rusty, crusty, crappy old road bike, and within an hour, and for free, turn it into a somewhat quasi-rideable single-speed bike. And there it is in the fading sunlight, in all its glory, the Peugeot single-speed that an hour and a half ago was a crusty derelict that nobody would have wanted, and now it's a single speed that nobody would want. But hey, I showed you that you can make a single speed for free in like an hour. And don't ever build a bike like this, because this thing's sketchy as hell and you'll die if you ride it. This video is just for fun. Good luck, and thanks for watching.